R&B vocal titans clash. Witness the clash of the titans. It began with a White Riot in 1977 and ended in 1986 when the band split. But 20 years later, the Clash are more influential than ever. Neil Spencer explains their lasting appeal, while James Brown asks famous fans to pick their favorite singles. Hat gives the band longevity. Quality, the virtues of classic songwriting, melody, lyricism, and inescapable hook line. A killer riff. An iconic image and a seminal role in pop history will ensure immortality of a sort. The Sex Pistols will always define a punk insurrection, and Spandau Ballet will always sport the kilts of new romance. But if you really want to stick around, you better have music that resonates down the decades. Before we start the video, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, then you will not miss our new video. The Clash always threw great shapes, pressing like rock dandies and refining their visuals and stage presence with the finesse of art students. After the Pistols, they were the most galvanic, mythologized force in punk. But over the 20 years since they split, 23 if you count from Mick Jones' sacking, it's their songwriting that has underpinned the group's continuing presence in the cultural ether. It's a presence that has grown in recent years as Clash songs have seeped into soundtracks. Clash titles have become catchphrases. Witness the way Rock the Casbah and London Calling have acquired anthemic status, or director Shane Meadows naming his new film, This Is England, after a Clash single. Tomorrow also sees the issue of a complete 19-disc singles box set, Sony BMG, and Chris Salewick's epic, revealing biography of Joe Strummer, Redemption Song, HarperCollins, is in the shops now. A new generation of musicians name-checks the band in much the way that Britpop groups paid homage to the Beatles, while their songs are widely covered. Here a country cover of Stand By Me, they're a folk version of Janie Jones, or a Franco-Arab Casbah, to name 3 recent examples. Unlike most punk bands, the Clash positioned themselves as part of wider musical traditions. Strummer might have proclaimed no Elvis, Beatles, or Rolling Stones in 1977, but the band covered reggae, rockabilly, and blues, and had country singer Joe Ely and R&B trailblazer Bo Diddley as support acts. Shane McGowan, The Pogues, White Riot. All the Clash singles come down to White Riot. It was the first single. It's got 1977 on the B-side, and I'll always remember the day I bought it, which was the day it came out. It was March 77, and you could really see that the party was already over and we were rushing headlong towards the summer of hate. White Riot and 1977 really gave off that feeling of paranoia, and the Clash were doing their up-against-the-wall stance in their stenciled suits. It had a great picture sleeve. It was all about speed, staying out in sexually deviant or heavy-duty black nightclubs, and massive creativity. It was also a piss take of how pathetic white people are at standing up for their rights and having fun, whereas black people know how to do both. Both the Clash and the Pistols were masters of decadence. The essential theme behind punk wasn't hate, it was complete contempt for the idea of the right to work or the need to do anything. It wasn't ignorance, it was simply, fuck it, I don't care. I just want to have fun, and White Riot says it all. Carl Barron, singer, Dirty Pretty Things. Tommy Gunn. The Clash were part of the nameless soundtrack to my early life. My mom and dad had these punk compilation tapes they used to play, and Should I Stay, or Should I Go, and London Calling were on them. The band always appealed more than the Sex Pistols. They had more to say. Tommy Gunn evokes that age. It's a product of the volatile climate of the late 70s. All those references to terrorist organizations like Baader Meinhof and the Red Brigade. It's like a punk adaptation of the Beatles' Revolution. Tommy Gunn, you ain't happy less you got one. Fucking great. A mate told me a funny story about the ad-lib near the end where Strummer sings, "Okay, so let's agree about the price and make it one jet airliner for 10 prisoners. Apparently, he texted it to a mate who couldn't figure out what the lyrics were, and the next morning, some heavies from NI5 turned up on his doorstep. That alone proves Tommy Gunn is as relevant now as it was back then. Irvine Welsh, novelist. Clash City Rockers. The opening chop guitar riff, executed with such abrupt power and precision, immediately informs you that you're in the presence of true greatness. Punk was primarily a male youth culture, and the song audaciously kicks over the previous lads' icons, Bowie and the pre-nonce Gary Glitter. It was saying that it wasn't wearing makeup that made us shocking. It was because we were obnoxious, spotty, angry, bored young cunts. This was one of the songs that made me leave home and go to London. It was always on at all hours in a shepherd's bush squat. I became an insomniac because of this song. Every time you put it on, you were making a statement. This is our time, and we will not be denied. A lot of water, beer, amphetamines, and music has flowed under the bridge since then. But under the right conditions, for example, blasting out from a Stoke Newington stereo on a hot London summer's day, I feel a shiver down my spine, and nearly 30 years seem to have been shed. Charlene Spiteri, Singer, Texas. Rock the Casbah. My all-time favorite single by The Clash was Rock the Casbah, because I was convinced they were singing Charlene Don't Like It. Later, I booked into hotels as Ginny Jones until someone rumbled me. I also love The Cool Out, which is a mix of the Call Up from the Sandinista album. It's really important because it shows the band's versatility. The thing about The Clash that stood out is they were always looking for what was happening, what was coming up from the street. They took what was new and hadn't broken through, mixed it with something accessible, and made it The Clash. They changed music completely by showing they can take a band with bass and guitars and drums to a whole new place. They took away the fear of gay disco music. Pete Townsend, The Who, Should I Stay or Should I Go? My favorite Clash single is Should I Stay or Should I Go? I thought I'd heard it somewhere before. Listening to the album, Combat Rock makes me feel like I'm 34 again and spring is in the cocaine. We had a junior manager called Chris Chappell, who was the huge Clash fan. I invited them on to the US tour after Chris convinced our senior manager they would be good. By the end of the tour, they had broken the US. I adore the Clash as I adored the Sex Pistols. Not really comparable, but they both felt to me like bands who, like the Jam a little later, had traveled a route laid by the Who more than any other band. The New York Dolls and the Ramones influenced British punk rock, but it was our simultaneous exaltation of rock and indifference to it that both bands emulated. So I have a personal pride in the Clash, as I do in the Sex Pistols and the Jam. The Who recently played at the Brighton Center, and all I could think of while we played was that I had once played with the Clash on the same stage in 1981. Ian Brown, musician formerly Stone Roses. Bancropper. I was at the recording of Bancropper. Me and my mate Pete Garner were walking down Granby Road in the middle of Manchester one day, and we could hear these drums coming through the walls. Pete was a proper Clash fan, and he was convinced it was them. Then Topper Hedden walks out onto the street right in front of us. He invited us downstairs into the studio to see what was going on. Mikey Dread was there, and we got chatting. They were dead cool. Joe Strummer was sitting in the corner with a big wide-brimmed hat on beneath this big grandfather clock, clicking his fingers in time to it. Bernard Sumner, Joy Division and New Order, Rock the Casbah. I was aware of the Clash when punk happened because that was what started us going, although I don't think Joy Division were punk like that. I think it was something else that came after that didn't have a name. I heard Rock the Casbah in New York when we first started going there in the early 80s after the demise of Joy Division. We were struggling a bit because Ian Curtis's death meant we couldn't go in that direction anymore. We'd peaked in that sound. Clubs in New York were new wave, and the music was infinitely better than in England. If you find this video useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.